I
Hello.
said, do you hear me getting Fallon? I've just like turned you into a verb. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that you turned me into a verb.
I just did. Yeah,
Um,
I was getting Falloned now.
oh, okay. So you were just listening to the most
Yeah,
recent one that I
yeah.
sent?
Because that I was asking about the triggering thing. That
Hmm.
had me curious today. And then the whole like money mindset, it's a you thing, it's your subconscious. I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, oh my God, am I doing that?
Yeah, that one's actually a big one because that's a big one because it's marketing and
Yes.
people want you to believe that it's something external like money, like you have a
Mm-hmm.
block around something external, which is a block around money.
Mm-hmm.
However, that's not actually the case because money is a tool.
Yeah.
And if you were to really break it down, money is external to you. And the best way, I think I made a video on this. The best way that I can explain it is that we're like trees, okay?
Okay.
So trees get their nutrients from the soil and they get water to help nourish them and
Mm-hmm.
sunlight. And
Okay.
so when the nutrients come in through the soil to the roots, then the nutrients have to travel up through the roots, through the trunk to the branches, and then the fruit can come out the branch, like the leaves, the flowers, whatever, the buds. And so when I think about money, it's the very same way. Like when we talk about money, it's the fruit of your labor, right? The fruit of
Ooh,
your labor.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so money is literally the fruit. So it has nothing to do with blocks around money because if you
Mm-hmm.
think about it in terms of like the actual visual of a tree, that would mean that you have a block around the leaf or a block around the apple, when really that's not the case. It's the case that you're having a hard time getting the nutrients from within the roots up the trunk to where they need to go.
So is it the water or is it the nutrients or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of how so water is abundant. Water will continue to come down from the sky and
Mm-hmm.
there's groundwater, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily a water thing.
Okay.
And where they are in the soil, it's not necessarily a soil thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
more of a how are the nutrients being transported within the actual vein structure of the tree?
Okay.
How are the nutrients being transported through the rings? How are the nutrients being transported, you know, are there little, you know how our lungs have alveoli
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
so it increases the surface area for you to be able to
Mm-hmm.
convert
Mm-hmm.
oxygen. Same
Mm-hmm.
idea with roots, right? Like, what are the how much surface area do you have under the ground in the soil for your roots to grab nutrients up?
So would you
So
say that your limiting beliefs are the trans or the not the nutrients? No, the limiting beliefs aren't the nutrients. What's the limiting belief in the tree analogy?
I think the limiting belief would probably have to be, or would probably be, the like the direction of growth or if
Mm-hmm.
growth is capped, right? So like even
Mm,
if
okay.
let's say we were to take it out of the tree out of being in nature, because when the tree's in nature, it is abundant. It can grow as high as it wants, it can grow as wide as it wants. It could grow however it wants to in nature because it has this space to. Let's say we're talking about, a plant in a pot, right?
Okay. Okay.
When you're in a pot and you're in that same pot, the limiting belief is the pot because
Okay.
you're confined to that pot. And until you bust through that little
Uh-huh.
pot
Uh-huh.
into a bigger pot, you
Mm-hmm.
cannot grow and evolve.
Ooh, okay, okay. Now, here's my next question. Is this the first time you've ever used this analogy just now?
This is the first time that I've used it. I've heard in order for the plant to grow, it has to be put in a bigger pot. Like you just because it's a certain height and it's healthy doesn't mean that it's thriving. When you
Right,
put it
right,
into a
right.
bigger pot, then it can start to grow and it can start to bear fruit or whatever it is. And so like that's the only portion that I've ever really gotten from towards like the pot is the limiting belief.
Yeah.
Everything else is like this is the first time besides yesterday when I recorded that video that I've been using this analogy, yeah.
This is a good one. This is a really, really good one, Talon. Like I got
Mhm.
my it visually took me to a tree I was like, okay, what kind of tree am I? And where am I stuck in my tree? Like, why I've got fruit, but do I need more? I need more fruit. So where are my limiting beliefs in this tree? That was a good one. That was a really good one.
Yeah. Well, another thing about the visual with it is that your subconscious mind works in pictures and your
Mhm.
subconscious mind
Yeah,
works with images and symbols. So when you can use metaphors, it's actually better for the person on the other side because then they can actually envision it. And the cool thing about me using the tree as a visual is that your internal representation sees the tree in a different form than how my internal representation is, right? So
right.
I see the tree on, like, in, like, a forest on the side of a golf course, right? So,
Hmm.
that's where
Interest-
my tree is, but somebody else's tree might be in a pot, somebody else's tree might be, in the Amazon,
Yeah,
like, it
my
does
tree was on a
like
hillside. It was the only tree. Oh, it's so pretty.
yeah.
Light shining on it like it was the golden tree.
Wow, Celeste. I think that says a lot about you.
It's like on the hillside in this meadow. It was like so pretty.
That is pretty. That's very pretty, and that's also very calm and serene. So, but that's the other cool thing, like, everybody's interpretation is going to be different, and that's how you can learn about the person who you're communicating with, because when you ask them, like, "Well, what did you see?" And then you tell me, "Oh, yeah, I saw my tree was on top of a meadow, and it was like the golden tree," like, yeah, that to me says a lot about you, like, your soul internally is a very calm and, like, when I think of a meadow, it's, like, very radiant soul,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like yeah, so
I think that's
that's the cool
cool.
part about the subconscious
Okay.
mind too.
I want to see the tree more, Fallon, in your content. I can't wait. I can't wait. More tree talk.
Well, the tree I think is also so it's funny that we bring up the tree, and the reason why is because I don't know if you know that I'm, like, a super nerd when it comes to Marvel. Did I ever tell
Hmm.
you that? So
I just know a little bit.
So Loki
Mhm.
is the brother of Thor. Loki's like the god of mischief, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And most recently, Marvel released season 2 of Loki, and season 2 of Loki was basically changing Loki from the god of mischief into the god of stories. And the way that they went about doing this was by involving the you're not going to know what this is because you're not are you familiar with Norse mythology?
No, no, no. You lost me
Okay.
there. Okay.
Okay. So I'll tell you what it is, and then I'll explain to you what it is.
Okay.
So, the way that they introduced Loki as the god of stories is by putting Loki at the center of the Yggdrasil. Okay. The
Okay.
Yggdrasil in Norse mythology is the tree of life. So, in this analogy, all timelines are involved within the tree of life, and Loki is holding together all of the roots and the timelines within the tree of life. And the cool part about the tree of life is that you have the roots down at the bottom, and then you have, like the flourishing foliage up at the top. So it's symbolic of light and dark. It's symbolic of transformation. It's symbolic of evolution and of growth. And so it's funny that we bring it up because I feel like the idea of a tree has everything to do with transformation and evolution.
Yeah.
And it's it's very adamant and firm and beautiful representation
I like
of life and transformation and evolution and growth. And I think, you can't as above, so below, right? So like
that.
your darkness is just as big as your
Mhm.
foliage and your light. So it's
Mhm.
like it's such a beautiful soliloquy, I guess is the word, or like it's like a roundabout, like it all involves each other. So yeah,
I like
I
it.
don't
I
know.
like it.
I've been so in love with it lately. It's been such a like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
I like it.
The reason why I say that now is because the podcast is about transformation and how
Okay.
transformation has led to prosperity. And you in particular have a very transformative story in terms of your health. So, um, I would really like for you to talk about your transformation and your story and how it's led to prosperity in your health and in your life, and how that's even taken place in terms of what your own personal growth and evolution has evolved into.
It's interesting that you bring this up because this came up in my live today on TikTok.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was talking about my transformation because somebody had asked me to like go into detail, and I was saying how you do these posts and you say like, if I only would have known this, if I would have known this back then, and I said I had made the statement that um, I don't actually wish I could go back and change anything because I firmly believe that what I went through has made me a better coach. It's made me way more relatable. I understand what it feels like to be preyed upon by the diet industry. I understand what it feels like to get up in the morning and like not recognize yourself in the mirror. Like I understand what it feels like to just like eat good for 2 days and then get on the scale and get all pissed off and then just be mad all day, you know? And if I
Yeah.
hadn't gone through that little bit of weight gain, it wouldn't have been part of my story because, my fitness journey started over 20 years ago. And it started because I was a skinny fat girl who was like, I'm gonna start going to the gym. You know what I mean? Like, and
Mhm.
I wanted to go to the gym to like air quotes get into shape, right? So I started going to the gym and I was doing cardio day after day after day, and my body wasn't changing, but it's like I consciously didn't even really know. I couldn't have articulated what I wanted my body to look like. I just know I didn't like the way that it looked, right? And I feel like that's what a lot of women who come to me are in that same position. Like, well, I want to weigh 125 because I weighed that when I was 16. I'm like, well, yeah, but you're 40 fucking six. So like that doesn't make sense. You understand? Like why do you
Yeah.
want to weigh what you weighed when you were 16? Okay. Like it doesn't no. Let's fast forward, okay? Because what you can't articulate is you want to look a certain way, right? And so for me, I wanted to look like this chick that I saw on the cover of a magazine. And it wasn't some model, it was this buff chick on the cover of Muscle and Fitness magazine. I was like, I want to look like her. And so I was like, that's what I've been trying to do. But the cardio wasn't doing it. So I literally bought the magazine. I took it home. There just so happened to be a 3-month workout in there. I tore out the little perforated workout. I got to the gym at 4:45 like a nerd because I was just like everybody else. I didn't want to go to the weight room. I was embarrassed. I didn't know what I was doing, right? Again, skinny fat girl. I didn't have any confidence. I was just like, I'm here early, no one will see me, and that's what I did. And within that first week, I probably that first workout, I was completely like hooked, like hooked. And I took that 3-month workout and I completely had a transformation, right? Because I was a newbie gains, all the things that happen. And so from that moment on, I was just like, I wanted more and I wanted more and more and more. And so fast forward, I start working with coaches because once I realized that you could lift weights and there was a sport attached to it, I was like, oh, hell yeah. Now, mind you, I was not athletic growing up, okay? Like not athletic at all. And but the idea of like working towards something really just like piqued my interest. So I
Mhm.
decided I wanted to compete. I decided I wanted to do that. So I spent 3 years working with two coaches helping me gain muscle. So I've always like understood the importance of eating a lot of protein. That's never been an issue for me. Like, so that was, you could have told me to eat dirt and I would eat dirt if it meant it. Like I was going to gain the muscle, right? So I mean, that's the kind of like student, I wouldn't say patient, but that's the kind of like client I am. Like I will do exactly what you tell me to do to get to the end result. So I did that and I competed, and that was not what I thought it was going to be. However, it gave me a foundation because now I was addicted to lifting weights because yes, externally, does it give you the body? Of course. And anyone's a fucking liar if they tell you that they're not driven by the external process because they are. Okay. We're all like looking in the mirror and we want to see something better. However, through that transformation, you have an internal transformation. Your identity changed. So I went from skinny fat girl, okay, out of shape, didn't play sports, couldn't even run, half a block, to now I'm, running marathons. I'm super fit. I'm strong. I'm lean. I'm all the things, right? So I talk about identity a lot because what I didn't realize when I was going through my bullshit and the roller coaster dieting stuff is I didn't realize that I had gone through an identity shift. And I look back now and I'm like, that's why I couldn't like, it was like I was telling this story the other day. it was like I was having an out of body experience. It's like I knew what it was like to be the fit girl. I knew what it was like to be strong and healthy, but I'd gone through several surgeries because that's kind of what kickstarted this whole weight gain thing. As I've had 5 hip surgeries on one side. So 3 of them being hip replacements. But when all that started, that's when my identity started shifting and I started identifying as like, oh, I'm weak. Oh, because I was hurting all the time, right? I was in pain
Right.
all I couldn't do a lot of the stuff that I had done before. I was still exercising, but not like I was. So I started identifying as weak. I'm not strong. I'm all the things that are the exact opposite of who I had built myself up to be. Right. And you don't know that when you're going through this shit. You don't know you're having an identity crisis. Like, nobody, I know that now. Um,
Right.
let me back up for a second. What got me to personal training was so I had the external transformation. I went from, cardio girl to the weights. And I was like, oh my God, I need to do this for a living because I loved it so much. I wanted to help other women. And I felt like I had a secret. I felt like I had this big, huge, like I was like, hey, get over here. Let me, because I've seen you for the last 2 years and you've been on the same step mill for 2 years and nothing's changed. And
Yeah.
so what drove me to get certified and do those things years ago, because I wanted to share my experience with other women because I was like, y'all don't know that shit over there is not going to cut it. Like you really need to come over here to the dark side, to where the scary weights are, right? And you need to drink our Kool-Aid because that's the body that you're looking for. You just don't know it because we're like ingrained to like do a lot of cardio and not eat a lot of food. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of what got me started on my
Yeah.
career path.
Yeah. That's
Um,
uh that's really important. I'm really glad you bring that up.
yeah, I think the backstory is important because I think that you fast forward to today, and I am
Mhm.
always going to be the girl that's over here preaching, lift weights, build the muscle, eat the protein. And I'm going to die on the hill with weights will not make you bulky because they won't. Because if if people like me who enjoy lifting weights, who enjoy putting on muscle, if we could gain a significant amount of muscle in a year's time, we would do it in a heartbeat. We would do whatever it took, but it's not physically possible. And so many women are afraid to even try it because in their minds, they're just like, nope, I'm gonna get bulky. Nope, I'm gonna get bulky. And like you have no proof, you have no data. Like you maybe, and again, this is gonna be really mean if you got bulky, it's because you have body fat. Like
Okay.
have body
This
fat.
this is too perfect for you to be saying because it's so funny that okay, number 1, yes, I love every little bit about the identity shift because it has everything to do with NLP. Like you're actually changing what's going on. You're actually changing how you look at yourself in the mirror and that's like changing your internal representation and that is huge. That is a huge shift, so I love that you bring that up. And the other thing that I want to talk about here is that I feel like I've been trying to put on muscle for legit the last 2 years. Like, not kidding. And I feel like it's easier to lose fat than it is to put muscle on.
Oh, it totally is. That's the thing. It's so easy, right? People don't realize how hard putting on muscle requires. Okay, it requires a lot of work, not just in the gym, but it requires a certain amount of calories, the right amount of training, and it takes time. So you got to compound all that for that kind of consistency over an extended period of time. I'm talking a couple years, and you
Yeah.
might see someone change their physique, but that's the stuff that like no one talks about. It's like, well, no, I got bulky. It's like, no, you didn't. You got bulky because you may have toned up, okay, underneath the fat. And
Right.
you think you got bulky, but the truth of the matter is muscle. And I did an IG live this week where I actually show because I in my closet, I have a pound of muscle and a pound of fat, right? Like as I like to do videos with it. And when I show you what the pound of fat looks like versus the pound of muscle, they don't even like look even remotely close because muscle is sleek and it's tight and it's toned. I mean, if you want to use the descriptive words, where muscle or fat is like, bleh. Like it's jiggly, it's like it's got no shape. It's lumpy, and it's like when you shake it, it wiggles because it does. When you shake the pound of muscle, it does not wiggle. You know what I mean? Like it's firm,
Yeah.
you know?
So are you saying that, like, it's not possible? Because like, okay, When I was in high school, I did a lot of personal training with a trainer, and even into college, I did a lot of personal training. I was an athlete for most of my life, so I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum from you here, where
Yeah.
you kind of started where you were like skinny fat, and you did a lot of cardio, and then you transferred over to the dark side. I was always on the dark
Okay.
side.
Yeah.
Like, I was always over here. And so when I'm thinking about how I was training, it
Hmm.
was very much so in a way that, like, Doug was his name, and he would always be like, "Oh, yeah, like, you can put muscle on and lose fat at the same time."
Hmm. Hmm. You
Yeah?
can, yeah, you can. You can body recomp, which
Yeah.
is what I wish a lot of women would realize they could do because it would mean that you wouldn't be eating super low calories. It's a nice sweet spot, right? Where you're giving your body just the right amount of food, okay, where it'll lose body fat and it'll put on muscle, which is going to make you burn more calories, make you more efficient. We want to be like the most efficient burning machine. And your body, you might be somebody who weighs 140 pounds, right? Like this is why when somebody gives me a target weight, I'm like, okay, you tell me you want to weigh 130. What if we get you to 135, but you lost 3 pant sizes? Would you be cool with that? And they're like, oh my God, yeah. I'm like, okay. Because what you don't realize is you could body recomp. So let's say you're 140 pounds, right? And
Mhm.
you could lose technically, I'm going to say just, even though that's a horrible thing to say, just and only, you could lose just 5 pounds, but you could drop like 10 to 15 inches over your entire body, and that would bring you down 2 pant sizes. Now, any woman will say, I'll drink, I want some of that. Like, give me some of that. Because you're going to be a smaller version of yourself. You're going to have less body fat. And so recomping, that's what that is. It's like redistribution and muscle. People are like, well, muscle weighs more than fat. No, it doesn't. A pound is a pound is a pound, people. Okay. But muscle takes up less space than fat. So when we have the same pound, the same body weight, but we have more muscle and less fat, you're a smaller version, and you're also more metabolic, which means you burn more calories. You're like a fat burning machine because you're just this ball of muscle, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
do you often find that the calories have to be, like, maintenance kinda calories for that? I mean, I know that I'm sure that macros have to change. I The
yeah,
way that I
yeah.
understand that, carbs work is that the carbs shuttle the proteins into the tears of the muscle so
Hmm.
that they
Hmm.
can rebuild the muscle and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
kinda,
yeah.
like, repair the tear at the
And
same time.
that's what's really funny about people who like people think, well, I started eating protein, I'm gonna gain all this muscle. I'm like, oh, really? Is that how that works? I think you're eating more protein. Like the reason that, okay, I've never liked being labeled a bodybuilder because I just never thought of myself like that. But technically I am, right? Because I'm somebody who likes to build my body with muscle. Okay. So the reason a bodybuilder or someone like me who eats 1 gram of protein per body weight is because our bodies need protein for so much. And this is what people just are not getting, like survival. Your body needs protein to break it down, to make more amino acids, to make more proteins. Like, you know what I mean? Like there, so that part has to happen first. So people like me, we want more, we need on top of that because we're trying to actually grow the muscle. So it needs more protein. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
there needs to be an abundance of it because the day-to-day functions of our body, protein is essential. Like your body needs it no matter what. It's gonna if you don't get it from food, it's gonna break down what you have for muscle and it's gonna use that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, diet has a lot to do with it. And I have found a person who is wants to body recomp, their mindset is okay, I just want to get stronger in the gym, right? Because the stronger you get, the more muscle we're going to put on, right? And you're going to burn more fat. And if you're focused on that and you take away and you're not focusing on like exercises to lose weight, exercise to make me smaller. It's like, no, exercise just to feel good. Like just move your damn body because you can. It's just because because you were like you have 2 limbs. Okay, you have 2 arms. Like we were born
You have
to
2
move.
limbs.
It didn't make sense. You know what I meant, right?
Yeah, I know
we
you
weren't
meant.
we weren't like we have the structure for movement for a reason. So when
Yeah.
people tell me like, well, do I have to exercise to lose weight? I'm like, you don't have to, but can we just do it just for the hell of it? Like, who says it has to be about weight loss? Like, do it to feel good, and then you'll find that you'll always want to do it. You
Yeah, I we talk
yeah.
about this a lot where it's like you gotta enjoy what it is that you do, and, like, the biggest thing for me that I keep coming back to is, like, I wanna go back into rowing so, so bad, and I I actually figured out why the other day I keep teetering on it, and it's because of, like, it's not anything to do with rowing, the sport, it's to do with the behaviors of certain, certain people within the areas that we were once familiar with, and so that's another topic of transformation and evolution, we're not gonna go there, but it's 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 you have to enjoy it in order for you to see the fruits of the labor come to fruition, because, like, don't get me wrong, I love going and lifting. I love it more when it's in support of something that's gonna get me to
Mhm.
the goal that I have for myself.
Of course, of course. So let me ask
Yeah,
you a question. How many years
yeah.
has it been since you've been like lifting consistently?
2,
Two?
maybe 3. 2021 was the yeah, 3. 2021 was the last time that I was, like, really lifting.
So actually, if you got back into a program, I bet you'd see results really quickly because
I hope so.
it's almost as if you like because you've been working out, right? So you wouldn't like technically fall into a newbie gains, but you'd fall into like somebody who had stepped away from it for like with an injury or stepped away from the gym for a significant period of time. And so your body would respond rather quickly. Plus, you've got muscle memory there, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I bet your body would be like,
Like a little robot.
pretty much, yeah, yeah, pretty much. And see, that's what I love about strength training. I'm like, your body is legit a canvas that you can do pretty much like once you figure out the basics. Because I tell my clients this, they're like, well, I don't feel like I'm done. I'm like, oh, you're never going to be done. Now you're hooked. Now you're hooked. Okay,
Yeah,
so yeah, we're going to lose some body fat and we're going to do that, but you're going to want to always be like kind of refining. Like, oh, you know what? I would like to see my legs look a little bit, more shapely, or I'd like to see my shoulders pop a little more. And so you're constantly like playing, like, playing and seeing what your body can do. And I think that's really cool that our bodies are able to do that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, just in the last I don't know, I started walking, I guess, back in, like, April, March or April. I
Okay.
didn't walk quite as much as I do now. I've been hitting
Mhm.
10K steps pretty regularly since probably the beginning of May, and I even like, I notice it in my arms even, and it's not even like I'm lifting, like, all I'm doing right now is I'm walking, but just, like, moving my arms when I'm walking and, like, getting myself
Mhm.
up to a
Mhm.
certain, I guess, heart rate is just enough for me to kinda see some results with my
Yeah.
own physique and my own physicality. So it is true, and man, it makes me wanna it makes me wanna just get back into it. I wish that I can kind of understand, and maybe you could shine a little bit more light on this. I wish I could understand the mindset of somebody who's in the gym like a bodybuilder every day. I've always wondered, I've always seen people do it on, like
Yeah.
bodybuilding.com,
Yeah.
and like there's a bunch of power lifters, but like, for whatever reason, my mental space when it comes to lifting like that is very different. Like I said before, when I lift, it's in support of what I'm doing. So
Right.
it's typically like deadlifts, squats, sometimes I'll do, like compound movements like clean and press, but
Mhm. Mhm.
rarely am I in there just to be like a gym rat. So,
Yeah.
like, I wanna understand that mentality a little bit more if you wanna shine a little bit more light on that, so
Sure.
I could understand why, so because it is a huge thing, there's so many people involved with
Oh yeah.
IFBB and bodybuilding in general, so
But I think you make the point though. Well, for me anyway, where my love came was there was a sport attached to it, right? So I was like,
Mhm,
and I'm a very much like once I set my mind to do something, I'm gonna do it. Like, okay. And again, it was all new, it was all new. I had like it's funny, people are you have to literally build things. Like I had to build out my lats, I had to build out my shoulders. Like I wish I had pictures of myself when I was like skinny fat so I could show that like I didn't just pop out of the womb with these like yeah, shuttle out. Ooh, here she came with these big old round shoulders. Like you literally have to build it. And so there's that, right? And then again, for me, there was a sport attached to it. So I knew that like there was a stage I eventually wanted to get on, and I knew I had to have a certain foundation. Again, it goes back to how long it takes to build muscle. People are like, "Oh, I'm going to build muscle this year." I'm like, "Oh, okay, great. Good luck with that." And not to say that you don't, but in my situation, you when you have the transformation of losing body fat, right? And when people choose to not prioritize strength training, when they're done, they're like, ew, this is not what I wanted to look like. Well, I'm like, well, no shit, because you didn't prioritize strength training. So now there's nothing underneath there. There's not any shape. And so I think the mindset of a bodybuilder is there's that goal, there's that show, right? And
Yeah.
and you have to remember that like you only get like one shot at it, okay? And you're up there with some really unforgiving lights, okay? And like and that bathing suit, it's not a bathing suit. It's a string up your butt and one across your hoop. Like it's like nothing. Like, there is no room for excess, okay? There is no room for even the slightest bit of overhang. You know what I mean? Like you're the leanest you ever be in your life. Like I mean, I think I was probably 9-10% body fat at that point.
Yeah.
So that drives you because, like I said, when you can't have a lot of whoopsies because you're getting up on that stage, and what you show up with that package is what you present,
Mhm.
and trust me, I know, because I had a couple slip ups with some peanut butter every now and then. I'd be like, oh yeah, I had too much peanut butter this week. But little things like that count. And then I think too, it becomes because and I learned this later when I was so I'll fast forward. I had the opportunity to teach PE over the course of my career, right? And it was probably the
Mhm.
best, it was the best job I ever had for so many reasons. But what was funny is I started teaching there, and back then I was like really lean. Okay. So the women there would make these little snide comments, and they would say things like, well, what are you gonna do? Because I was getting ready to have my first surgery. They're like, what are you gonna do when you can't go to the gym? And I took that really offensive, right? I got offended by that because I was like, I'm more than just some gym girl, right? That's what I saw, because that's what they were saying. Well, like, what are you gonna do with yourself? And I was like, I'm more than that. And I'm not saying that I wasn't, but what I didn't realize is I spent 14 hours a week at the gym. Okay. Now, when you take that away from somebody, it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take up crafting.
That's the
I don't
identity.
know. I don't know.
That's the identity piece.
Yes, yes, yes. And so I did struggle with that, not because I guess I was in a little bit of denial because for me it was just who I was, and that's the thing. It's just who you are. It's just who you be. I'm the girl that gets up at 5 a.m., brushes her teeth, puts her hair in a pony, and heads down to the gym. I didn't know any other way, and so um, I it just becomes who you are. It just becomes really automatic. Like, and I can say that because every time I had a surgery, I would go through this weird uh, I would go through this weird, what would you call it? Like period after the surgery where I would be afraid to go back to the gym first thing in the morning because I kept re-injuring myself, right? So after the first, because I was stupid back then, I was like, oh, I gotta get back to it. Like, okay, really? Do you though? Do you? And so I would associate early morning workouts with my old identity. So I was like, oh, well, don't get too excited. Don't get too comfortable getting up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym because you're going to hurt yourself again. Or if you do hurt yourself again, I felt like the rug was getting pulled out from underneath me.
Yeah.
So I associated that like time of day, all that stuff. Like, because again, it just becomes who you are.
It's kinda like it reminds me of, like, a refractory period,
Hmm.
like, when things are kind of getting back to normal, but still not normal quite yet, and you find yourself, like, tripping up or not doing things at the capacity or the level that you know that
Yeah.
you're capable
Yeah.
of doing.
Hmm.
That's
That's a good
that's what that
example.
sounds like.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was a rough time. It was a rough time for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, when I was in high school, I I was at a cross country meet and we were in Van Cortlandt Park in New York. And there were these railroad ties on the course. And I went to go jump over like, I don't know, the second or third railroad tie. I made it over one. I maybe two. And by the time I went to go over the second or third one, I twisted my ankle so
Oh.
bad that my foot was like the opposite direction.
Ew, ew, ew,
Yeah.
ew.
Yeah, and so, like, I couldn't get up, and I was, like, sitting there, I was, like, crying, I was like, somebody help me," and then they, like, finally got me, they, like, wheeled me out of the course because, of course, like, it was, like, starting to go into the woods of the park,
Yeah.
right? They wheel me back, we sit on an ambulance, I go to the hospital, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, like, you've sprained your ankle, you're not going anywhere for, like, at least 3 months."
Oh,
And I
wow.
had this boot on, and even after the boot, I still had to wear a very rigid brace for probably the better part of the next 3 months. It was a very bad sprain, like, I
Mhm.
tore my Achilles tendon. It
Wow.
was bad, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, you gotta wear this." It was like, they weren't rods in the brace, but it was, like, it was probably PVC pipe, and
Okay.
it was around my ankle so that it could set my tendons back into place and everything. And I was in the boot for 3 months, and then I was in that brace for the following I think it was, like, 8 or 10 weeks, and I still do not sleep the same, and it's been minimum 15 years,
Yeah.
and, like, you're right, though, like, it changes you when you go through something like that, when you have those surgeries, when you have those, injuries, you start to see that identity shift, you start to see that there's like, oh, like you said, like, well, what am I gonna do now that I can't go to the gym? What am I gonna do now that I can't go to cross country practice? Of course, like my my length of time that I was out was longer than the cross country season, right? Like now we're going into like almost spring season by the time I'm actually able to go do anything ever again. So like I had a whole year in terms of my high school athletic career that I was, like,
Oh, yeah.
out, and I was, like, benched, so, yeah, I could definitely understand that, and I can see how important and transformative it is at an identity level. What I'm curious to know, because you've done so many and you've amassed so many amazing transformations, you've worked with so many people, so many amazing clients that I know of. I'm not gonna say anything because, like,
Thank you.
private. Um, but you've amassed such a huge repertoire of your own transformation and other people's transformations. My question for you, definitely right now, is what is the biggest prosperous, like, what is that moment for you that you're like, "Yeah, I am truly successful at this," or like, "Yes, I can truly own this." What was that moment in your journey in this whole entire timeline that you were like, "Yes, I have it."
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I think probably being able to identify as a strong fit person again.
I love that. So
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah, because at the core, like again, it's weird because we go through entrepreneurship and we're trying to be all these things, right? And I think when you're really not confident, but really sure of who you are, you can pretty much accomplish anything, right? Like you're unstoppable. Okay. And I say that with certainty because those years when I didn't identify as the person I was prior to, the week, I say week because that's what I looked at as. And I don't want to be like that's what I'm saying about myself, right? I personally physically felt weak. Okay. So, my body felt weak and then I mentally felt weak. But when you are rock solid in who the hell you are, you know what I mean? And you get up
Yeah.
every day and you identify and you're just like, yeah, that's just who I am. It makes life and what you want to do and the scary things so much easier to accomplish because you're still going to be scared, right? But you're like, no, I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of, and you're able to, like, I like to say, punch fear in the face, right? Like you're just like, I'm not going to take you today. Not to say that you don't still have your days, but I would say being able to go full circle and wake up and look in the mirror and say, yeah, you're strong as fuck. Like, you know, um,
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest one because then from there I can actually, like, I can I can share what I've been through with other people. And I think for a while there, I when I was injured and like I was not personal training, but I had people who wanted me to train them, and I didn't ethically feel comfortable because I'm like, I can't even do a squat right now. And you want me to train you? Like, really? Like, like, no, And so I struggled with that because I'm like, no, I can't be your trainer right now because I physically am in pain all the time and I can't even show you how to do the exercises. No, and so for me, now I I look back at that and I think, oh, you were dumb, Celeste. Like you were dumb because people wanted your help because of my perspective and how I see things. And so I think now I love I love my story because I want people to know like I bounced back because I had the foundation of exercise, right? And I'm blessed with that. But you can start exercising at any age and you can overcome anything. Your body is remarkable. Like it really, truly is. If you can get out of your head and just start doing the work. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I like that part of my story now because I tell people they're like, "You've had 3 hip replacements, what?" And then you can actually, my scar is pretty deep on my butt cheek, And I'm like, "Yeah, you see that right there? See that chunk of my butt that's gone? Yeah, that's the scar."
That is so awesome. Celeste, this is gonna be like the last weird question, I promise.
Okay.
Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? And where can they get into your energy because it's fucking awesome?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm pretty simple. I'm at Coach Celeste. That's my handle. That's my handle on TikTok. That's my handle on Instagram. Those are where I'm really at, and Threads, same thing. At Coach Celeste. That's where you can find me.
Okay,
Those are
cool.
the 3 platforms. Not so much a Facebooker, but things do show up there.
Yeah,
But I'm
sometimes.
yes, sometimes. But you can find me. You can find me on the morning on TikTok lives because I walk and talk every morning now. I really like that.
Yo, seriously though, your TikTok lives are lit. Like they're so good. Like they're so good. Your energy is so amazing on those
Thank
lives.
you. They're fun. I love it. My definition of a successful life is just having engagement the entire time. Like having people like I tell my community, I'm like, this is hot seat coaching. I will always come on here with a topic and something I want to educate you on. And if you're in my world, you're going to be empowered and you're going to know more and you're going to be able to tell people to shut the fuck up because no, 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 this is why you need to eat protein. This is why doing keto is dumb, because you're gonna learn something, and I want you to walk away from my lives and have something tangible that you can actually put into place right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love the questions, I love the engagement, I love the interaction, and I mean I've got people that are literally going on the walks with me too. And every single life somebody wants to know what my shoes are. I don't know what the deal is with that, and my socks, like straight up. I want to see them. I'm like, I'm not taking my shoe off. This is weird.
Yeah. Oh my god, that was just what I was thinking of. I was like, I hope they're not like foot fetish
No,
people.
I tell them, I'm like, send me a DM and I'll find the Amazon link. I'm not going to
Oh my god. So
It's
fucking
pretty
funny.
funny. It's pretty funny. I know,
Oh,
right?
thank you so much, Celeste. I
Well, yeah,
fucking love
thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. I'm
Yeah, no
excited.
problem.
I'm excited. This is really, really cool.